Welcome back to Conversations. I'm Bill Kristol, and I'm very pleased to have with me today Donald Kagan, a distinguished longtime professor, I guess now Professor Emeritus at Yale University. Thanks for being here.
Pleasure to be here.
That's great to have you. So I told someone in Washington I was coming up to New Haven to do a conversation with you, and Donald Kagan, he said, "Oh, I love Don Kagan. He's the war guy." So you're a great professor, distinguished ancient historian. Yet in Washington, you're known as the war guy. I think that's mostly because of your book, terrific book, The Origins of War. But talk about the book and about war.
Well, the book is called On the Origins of War and the Preservation of Peace.
Yeah, people drop the second S.
They do tend to drop the second part, but I think that the connection is very crucial and too infrequently attended to. And the other rest of the title, a little bit of it, is owed to Clausewitz, who wrote his famous essay on war.
Right.
Well, I'm concerned particularly with the origins, how wars come about, not how you fight them. But the other thing is I think there's an inherent important linkage between thinking about how wars come, and then since most of us find it unfortunate when wars come most of the time, how in fact wars don't come about.
Right.
And in one sense, how wars can be prevented. That sounds like a bit of a more active and hopeful way of looking at things. Or how you can avoid going to war, which is a different thing, but has the same outcome.
So, talk about on the origin of war and the preservation of peace.
Well,
why did you write it? What prompted you to do it?
I've always been interested in the general subject, and my own life's work about Thucydides and the Peloponnesian War naturally leads me to think about war in general, and of course the problem. Thucydides certainly was the first person ever to make a very serious, careful analysis of why a war came about, with a kind of a modern degree of sophistication, beyond the modern degree of sophistication, I think, which made it both of historically serious and worthy of your attention, with philosophical implications having to do with its place in human events in general, so that the question of why the war came about always seized me, and I taught about it many times. And of course, before I undertook the book on the origins of war, I had written a 4-volume history of the Peloponnesian War, so you can see why those thoughts would come together. But the rest of the story is that I didn't begin my interest in history in the ancient world. I didn't really know there was an ancient world in any serious way until I was a sophomore in college. It really came quite late to me. But I had always been interested in modern European history. And Thucydides would have understood that better than most. You know, Thucydides has this great insight. I wish I get people to pay attention. It's very short. He has one of his speakers at the beginning of the war say, why do people go to war? Out of fear, honor, and interest. Well, everybody knows interest.
Right.
That's right. And fear is very credible. Nobody takes honor seriously. And one of the things the thing I suppose was the biggest surprise to me in writing that book was how potent honor was and is in the conduct of foreign affairs, which often leads to war. And people say, well, honor, who cares about honor? That's something that's another. Translate honor as in ways that we would understand it today. Use a word like prestige. Yeah. Use a word like shame, which is it's the negative that's most important in the honor issue. It's not so much that you want to acquire honor by victory. It's that you want to avoid the disgrace and the shame that comes if you feel like you lost. Yeah. And you can lose in negotiating and you can lose in war. And so people, and I quote the passages that demonstrate this, right down to the last minute, people are infinitely more concerned in what they're talking about inside their private circles with the disgrace, with the honor, with the besmirching of honor for their country than they are. Nobody's talking about economics.
Yeah, that's interesting.
And they don't even really talk about power. More than anything than you would imagine, they are concerned with this other thing.
I guess national pride is one way we try to capture it a little bit. But,
Sure, but it doesn't quite get it.
Right.
It doesn't quite get it. That sounds like you have, who needs that kind of pride? But shame, disgrace, they will think we are weak. They will think we are cowardly. And not only is that inherently bad, but all the people we rule will think they can push us around.
Right.
And they always are thinking about practical consequences of these impressions that are made.